of things happening at the same time. The Lord is faithful.
Yes, he is. I wonder why I don't see you. Where you at?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah? Oh, there we go.
Hey, one viewer, putting on lip balm.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Let me, okay, hold on. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Hey, Stephanie. All right, here we go. Hey, Stephanie. Oh, wow.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All three of y'all strong viewers on here. Post and share. Tag and
Go ahead, tag and share. We are at the last Wednesday in the month of May. And we got so much to talk about today. Go ahead on the tag and share. Let's get everybody tuned in today. It's Conscious Chick and Greg James right here on the last Wednesday of the month of May. And we've got a lot to talk about on today.
Yes, goodness. Yes, goodness.
Sean, what's happening, man? Good to see you. Tune in. Don't forget, you ought to be getting a call from Ron about Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, the funeral service of Brother Killings. Okay.
Here we go.
Want to say good afternoon and once again, welcome to, that's right, the Greg James Community Show on this wonderful Wednesday right here in the beautiful city of Tallahassee. And guess what? It's the last Wednesday of the month. And I tell you the truth, these days are coming so fast till I call Christine. I said, Christine, do you know it's Wednesday?
We had to wake up.
We had to wake up. I mean,
Wake
my
up.
God, it was
Wake up
truly a wake-up call.
Yes, sir.
And so she said, you know what, since it's Wednesday, why don't we just wrap the month up?
Yes.
Just talking about some of the things we need to talk about. So good afternoon to the Conscious Chick who's always shaking the consciousness of those who are tuned in. How are you today?
Hey, Reverend James. I'm tired. You know, this Memorial Day weekend. One time for everybody that went somewhere on Memorial Day weekend. Are y'all tired? If y'all tired, just tag and say, I'm tired. I need like a vacation from the vacation.
Hey, man, I tell you, I am too. I mean, I am so tired here today. I was sitting in my office and I mapped out a whole month of things I was going to do. And they didn't include people.
You was gonna have your own self-care ministry.
Absolutely.
One time for the self-care ministry, honey.
Yeah. If you feel like you need some self-care, just go ahead on and tag that self-care because it's so important. And you know, believe it or not now, I mean, we're laughing, but I think self-care is so important.
Man, listen, you know, I think that as we sit down and we think of the pace that has ensued post-COVID, right? And I know it's 2023, we're still talking about post-COVID, but this pace is brutal. It's almost like we're making up for a year and a half, 2 years of inactivity. We try to make everything happen at once. And I think the powerful part and the necessary part will be for us as individuals to just say, you know what, stop. Just put that hand up like the man did in the Matrix and just make it stop, because the pace will have your blood pressure skyrocketing. It's unsustainable without planning, without proper delegation, right? Without proper, what the scriptures say, no man will build until he count the cost.
Right.
And we spending more time than we have.
Right. And you know what? I mean, it's amazing that you said about blood pressure, because really, if you don't do self-care, I mean, here I was 2 weeks ago with blood pressure 171 over 118, and just finished preaching for the President Bernie over at St. Mark. An amazing service. We went and had dinner at Longhorn, and the next thing you know, here it is, I've got shortness of breath, my steps are short, and the next thing you know, I'm in the emergency room, and they're like, oh my God. So you said something that was key, and I want to say this to everyone who's listening. Even though we were laughing and joking in the process of talking about self-care, it was humorous, but yet it's a very serious time that you do self-care. I mean, you can take care of everybody else, but if you're not able to make sure you're okay, it's kind of like when you get on that flight and they tell you, hey, listen, you take the mask and you put it on first.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's important. And I think we don't see that as vital. And sometimes we feel like people make us feel like we're being selfish.
Well, I think we come, and shout out to Derek Steele and Michael Dobson, who put on the first ever Reverend Dr. C.K. Steele Institute luncheon last Friday over at the Bethel Family Life Center.
I heard it was amazing.
Very well attended.
I heard you was the MC.
I was the MC. I got a little bit in my feelings. I got I got to beg the pardon of the folk there. But I think they was all right with me when I left. But, I think that, in the vein of thinking about how we see the work we do. And historically, how people like a Reverend C.K. Steele took on the burden of the movement.
Absolutely.
Right? And many people who take on the burden of the movement, you who take on the burden of the movement, me who take on the burden of the movement. And we're not taught self-care.
No,
we're taught self-sacrifice. And nobody's asking you to kill yourself to do these things, right? But it's what's in you to do, right? It's that ride or die mentality. And I'm like Paula DeBose Johnson. Shout out to Paula DeBose Johnson. I'll ride, but why we gotta die? Can we live? Can we ride and live? Can we ride and live?
But now, when you think about that phrase "ride or die," it comes from a terminology where those guys who live that street life say, man, I'm ready to ride and die with you. So whatever happens, but I like the fact that you said, can we ride and live?
Ride and live.
Because at the same time, we are riding to die. I mean, because we're riding so hard for what we're fighting for. And big shout out to Derek Steele and Michael Dobson. I apologize. They reached out to me, and during that time I was being cared for.
Yes.
But I heard it was an amazing event, and it gave us an opportunity to reflect on a life of a person who was not just a pastor at Bethel, but a pastor for the whole entire community.
Oh yeah.
And I want to give a big shout out to Dr. R.B. Holmes, who is now serving at Bethel, has been serving this community in the same vein. So when we talk about self-care, we have to consider the fact that you've got to pause and put the mask on for yourself. And I don't know how you got so engaged in this community work yourself, but you have just like head over. You're all in.
Listen, I was Gloria Anderson, Jefferson Anderson, who was there at the event on Friday, who was my mentor at the Smith-Williams Service Center, along with many mentors, Barbara James at Bond Elementary School, and many others that when I worked in AmeriCorps and Southside were my community family. This is family. And you'll sacrifice for family. And I think that's, if people don't understand, they'll understand you. They'll understand why you will put yourself in such a state that your health is at risk. But we do things for family all the time. This work is not a detached work for us. It's not a hit it and quit it. It's not a what's in it for me.
Right.
It's about trying to see change happen in the community that our children can benefit from. We were at FAMU DRS doing the recap for May. May was crazy, right? We had FAMU DRS doing a live remote during the show.
And you know what? That show was so powerful, so impactful, and certainly it had great segue into the next event that was going to be broadcast at WFSU, because those kids were amazing.
Yes, they were. Yes, they brought it at WFSU, and we'll be rebroadcasting that. Maybe we can get some of our partners to share that broadcast. But thinking about that, the economic forum that we had on that Tuesday, then that the show we had on Wednesday, where I had to leave because I was just so overwhelmed emotionally with what the children were saying, right? And then getting to Thursday and seeing the parents and seeing the kids walk in WFSU studios with like the big eyes, like, oh, this is like a real studio, right? This is right in your backyard. This is at home. And then having these conversations about community and what we've inherited as a responsibility to curate and cultivate community. That's the soul of what I do. That's the soul of this show, the Greg James Community Show. I mean, that's the soul of what you are on the air to do. But it's a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift. And the thing about it is we do it with, we've been on the air. I got out of prison in 2008. And I first started right here at WTAL with Apostle. One of the things that I knew by being locked up is that I didn't have a voice. For over 13 years, all I had was a number, and your voice could not really be heard inside of a prison system too loud. If so, then you was going to be written up, and you're just going to be locked up, and you're just going to be in confinement. So one of the things that was always on my heart was that once I get out, I'm going to make sure that I am in a position to talk to the community, to engage them, to empower them. And so can you imagine, this is 2023. We've been doing radio since about 2010. And without any sponsorship, none of our guests paid for the airtime.
No paid promotions.
So I want to give a big shout out to our church, Life Church International, who has been so graciously supporting the work that we do right here on the air through the Greg James Community Show. And it's definitely designed to empower the community.
Yes.
And I'm saying all of that, Christy, to say that we do this for the sake of being able to make sure people who are listening can be motivated to get involved in the work that is at hand.
Oh,
we don't do it because we get a check.
No.
We pay a check to do it.
Well, okay, so let's stay right there. Because I was just meditating on that, and I think of all of the people who come to you for help. We're not talking about people who, the community have its buzz. You got the street committee, you got the street conversations, and you don't have much to say about that. That goes and flows with the wind. But you think about all the people that come to you for help, that come to you because they know there's help to be found. You think about all of the connections that you make out of the sheer sense of this is necessary, right? Not necessarily I got to get something out of it.
Right.
This is necessary. This is community. This is what we do. And I think about, how back in the day with the activist movements and how everybody played their part. Everybody had a role. And I think that our community has lost so much, in terms of that mindset. And that's why you ride or die. Because you're trying to make up for what's lacking, what's, the people that are missing, right? The laborers that are missing. You know, they say, look, the fields are white with harvest.
But the laborers are few. And you know, you said something, and for those of you who are listening, this is what we call Wrap Up Wednesday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's the last Wednesday in the month of May, and it caught us by surprise. I mean, one thing about time, if you ain't ready for it, it's going to be ready for you. And I woke up this morning not realizing that today was Wednesday until I made a post. But this is Wrap Up Wednesday, and we're talking about self-care, but not only are we talking about that, we're talking about the fact that the voice, the word, the impact of Dr. C.K. Steele that was celebrated here last Friday. And now we're talking about what we do, why we do it, and why we do what we do is because it's in us to do it. And when you talk about health, I mean, I just had a young man text me this morning. First, he called me. He said, first of all, thank you for helping me get into a treatment center.
Treatment center.
Listen to this. Here's a young man who has been in and out of prison. He comes to me and he said, listen, I need help. Listen to what I'm about to say. He said, I need help. He said, now, do I have to commit another crime to go to jail just to try to get help? Or how can I get into a facility to get help? And here's the thing. I ended up calling to the state attorney office saying, I got a young man who is saying, do he need to commit another crime to get help? Or how can he get help? Because everyone that he was going to, he needed funds to pay. He needed to be on a waiting list.
Come on now.
And it was not conducive to the place that he was in. So we got him situated in a facility. He called me this morning to say, hey man, I want to thank you for helping me. I'm out. And guess what? The young lady you introduced me to the city, I got an interview. I don't get no checks for this.
That ain't why you do it.
That ain't why I do it.
But the stuff you should be getting checks for, okay, I'm leave that alone. Going back to the activism, you know, activism happens on all levels, right? Sometimes it happens on the street, sometimes it happens on the corners with signs, sometimes it happens in the march. But the micro activism that you and I and many people in the community do, by the way, shout out to the Greater Bond neighborhood on the murals that they did. Greater Art for Greater Bond.
Oh my God,
shout out to the Dr. Henry Lewis, who is an icon in the Bond community, who has been muralized in the streets of the neighborhood and is a worthy icon. Yes, y'all want to see it? Y'all go online. Coca, I think, had posted some of it. They had everybody out there painting. Everybody out there painting the streets, you know. And,
now,
and
what
under
street is this?
This is up 9th and
But it's in the Bond area.
It is in
what
the Bond community. I'm getting somebody to tell us where the street is because they might want some other people to come out and help with the art. But there's all kind of people out there working and painting and helping with the muralization. But he was one of the key folks that was featured on their art project there in their neighborhood. Shout out to Talithia Edwards and the leadership of the Greater Bond neighborhood and Coca, Kathleen Spearhart, for getting the resources to be able to muralize that community in a way that is culturally relevant to that community.
And as we look at it, what people have to realize, it speaks to the community. When you can walk through the streets, you can drive through, and you can see a Henry Lewis in a mural, or you can see those who made great contributions to that area in a mural. It says something to the community that there's rich history.
Yes, and there's so much of it. There's so many everyday examples. You know, we're going to get it together at some point. And the thing is that, you know, they say a prophet is without honor except for his own country. Sometimes a community is without honor within its own community. And, you know, somebody like me who, you know, was a transplant, is an adopted Tallahassean. We see the richness here because we come from somewhere else. Right. But sometimes folks who are here, they don't get the love someone like me has because they've been here all the time. You know, and
it's really, and just like Talithia, I mean, she came here.
Yep.
So people who are here take for granted what is here.
Well, not all the time now. They're a little militant. Tallahassee is real militant about his history now. I gotta give it to it. And you know, it's some There's some gatekeepers right
Really?
here. What?
I gotta find
Oh
one.
yeah, honey, we don't play. This community does not play about it. But I think, like I shared at the luncheon on Friday, Reverend James, it's time for the transfer.
Wow.
It's time for the transfer. Remember the young lady at the event that we did, the live broadcast we did at Family DRS? What did she say?
Yeah.
She said, we live in the era of what? Disconnect.
Yeah, there's a disconnect.
There's the disconnect. And so the history has to come and transfer, not because people want to take and just, molest it. It has to transfer because in that history is identity. You come from a long line. I think about the Henrys of Tallahassee. Think about the Henrys in the families that are aligned with the Henrys and the James and all these families. There's a name there. There's respect with that name. Why is there respect? Because of those that came before you.
Right.
So you are honoring them through your life because of the example of who they were to the people before. And that's what Tallahassee is. It's a community of families, a community of neighborhoods that are made up of families.
And these families are in these neighborhoods.
Yes.
Their children grow up in these neighborhoods. Their children grow up. So therefore, it's so rich in these neighborhoods. And that's why it's so important that we get involved in our neighborhoods.
That's right.
And that's why it's so important that we cannot allow what is happening in our neighborhoods, the crime. We cannot allow that to continue.
That's right.
Because those are not the neighborhoods
that
we know.
No, that's not the real identity.
Yeah.
And I think that as we look at some of the other points and, as we talk about some of what's going on, it's going to be even more important that we transfer that sister community identity to the next generation. Because they've got to not only know, but they've also got to understand why it's important for them to fight and for them to maintain
The neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's amazing you said the next generation because I have a sense of hope now that our next generation won't be lost. I have a sense of hope that our next generation will pick up the torch and carry it. I have a sense of hope that our next generation will put the mantle on to make a difference just by the experience I had this past weekend over in the Port St. Joe area. I did the funeral of a 17-year-old young man who was a student at the Port St. Joe High School. His name was Travis T.J. Jenkins Jr. He played football there. He was a receiver and a defensive back. He was an athlete, great student. This young man was a member of New Life Church, who his grandfather is a covenant partner of mine. And he was a mime dancer in ministry. He did mime dancing.
Really?
And to see how many people, when I gave the invitation and shared my history, my story, my life story of my choices and my consequences and where they led me, but yet the God who redeems and who restores, saved me. When I shared that story, hundreds came to give their life. That gave me a sense of hope that if we just share the history,
come on now,
whether it's our community, whether it's our life, whether it's our legacy of our family, if we share the history, it's going to resonate. And when it resonates, a light is going to go off and somebody's going to realize change must take place now.
Come on now.
100 plus decided I need change.
Have mercy. Have mercy.
So when you said history and we got to share it in our communities, it's a must.
Well, you look at it scripturally, and I'm glad we're on a radio station that exalts Christ. You look at it from the standpoint of how did they overcome? They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of
their testimony.
And so the testimony sharing is, one of the things that I left with on Friday was the gospel was enough. The gospel is enough. The gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ is enough. When we talk about why people, and I'm going back to that very powerful event on Friday and all the things that have happened this month in the emancipation season, for our forefathers and mothers and grandmas and matriarchs and patriarchs to go through what they went through it because the gospel was enough. they could come to a church and they could sing a hymn and they could read scripture on the hope that lies in them. And then they could go out in this world, in this street, to fight against indignities. And that is the testimony that we have to share with kids. It's not by might nor by power, but by his spirit. God is empowering the next generation. There's revival, micro revival, macro revivals happening all over. People are finding and looking to God. Absolutely. And they are saying, Lord, I don't know what the government doing. I don't know what my mama doing. I don't know what the community doing, but I know you are faithful.
Yeah. And I think that it's so imperative that we who share in this work, it's so imperative that we keep people with the understanding is that it's not by power.
Yes.
It's not by might, but it's by my spirit. It's by the Spirit of God that's moving on the inside of us to keep doing what we're doing. So let's give a shout out to all of those activists that's in our community. And we dare not go to calling names because we're going to miss somebody. But they are doing what they're doing because they want to see change.
Yes.
They're not doing it because they want their name in lights. I pray that they're not. They're not doing it because a check comes with it, but they're doing it because this is a part of the mandate that's on their life. Mm-hmm. And you're going back to Friday and to hear and see them share the memories of Dr. C.K. Steele and his work beyond the pulpit.
Yep.
Impacted people in the pavement and led him to the promised land. Mm-hmm. Even though he was in the pulpit, his work was beyond that.
Yes.
And that's what was so amazing, I'm sure, to you, to hear so much that was said on Friday as you emceed that program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really good. And I want to just speak all those that this institute, this was their first event. So definitely stay tuned. Very well supported by city and county government and other entities of valor, obviously, because, you know, major seat of activism in the city and the community. I speak in the words of Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox, is really indebted to the Steele family. Because if you read what he undertook, even though he was under the leadership and guidance of someone else, he followed his path and fulfilled his purpose on the community front. And I think that's important because I think we go out there thinking that we're an entity into ourselves. Yes. Right? We just what somebody called a lone ranger. And I don't think anybody that goes out in this work wants to be a lone ranger. You just find yourself sometimes by yourself thinking that something is right. And then when you find solutions, people come on board to help. And unfortunately, that's the way things are. But he wasn't that way. That's not the way that our community ever really operated, right? You came under somebody, you served them well, and then you went out and fulfilled your particular mandate and mission based upon what's prescribed and what your gifts and talents or what your acumen is. And the community is blessed by that. And then as a community, we uphold and revere and remove not that old landmark of what you have done. Right. And I think that's something that's lost on our generation. I want to throw out there some of the folks that they presented on Friday. Posthumous, Miss Laura Dixie, Mr. Eddie Barrington. They talked about him and his cab service and how he, drove people who didn't catch the bus during that bus boycott. And they talked about Mr. Malachi Andrews. That was the 3 posthumous honorees. And then you had, I hope I'm not getting Mr. Barrington and Mr. Malachi Andrews' story mixed up. Don't charge it to my heart, charge it to my sleeplessness. Mm-hmm. But also they had living legacies, Miss Dorothy Emmett Johnson, Attorney Kit Spriggs, Reverend Ernest Farrell. And Reverend Ernest Farrell blessed everybody's life. He got up there and sung, "We making a difference." Boy, he tore it up when he sung.
Yeah, he been singing that for
very long time. Yes, sir. Very long time. And then Reverend Dr. Henry Steele, still living, eldest brother. And so it was really, really a nice. Marie Radigan gave the speaking address, and she basically brought it to today and talked about, where we're at in terms of our understanding of ourselves culturally, socially, and what she and her perspective believes that we must do to move forward. So it was a really, really good program. Definitely giving a shout out to the CK Steele Institute. If you're listening to this, please follow the work. We are really, as a community, indebted to the work of the Steele family and the leadership of Reverend Dr. CK Steele. But as you would say, this is the season of emancipation. This is a historic time for us. It'll be going on all the way up until Juneteenth, when the culmination of the national emancipation events will occur. I don't think that anybody, and I think about these churches, and I think about, associations like the Old West Primitive Baptist Association and the National Baptist Convention and all of these stalwarts, of our culture and our spiritual heritage. That was important for us. Even if we don't go to a Baptist church, even if we don't go to that denomination, we should know the history, because they played a pivotal role in leading and providing resource and helping to provide support during those very difficult times.
Well, I mean, on when you're talking about the church, on another note, let's look at, we're talking about Wrap Up Wednesday, Emancipation Month. We're getting ready to move into Juneteenth. So much has happened on a local, on a state, and even on a national front.
Yes.
But this is a season like never before.
Yes.
Where the faith community has an opportunity to unite, and not only unite, but have a strong voice in making freedom really have a sound to it. Because I think that when we look at where we are locally in the local world of politics, where we are with the local government that has happened in the state and even the national, I think the biggest voice needs to be the church.
And that was brought up at the event. When you talk about even the show that we do, Conscious Check, and we're dealing with economic development and community development topics and issues, the scripture talks about the two swords of government and church. And it talks about the need for them both to be working in concert, right? And balance. People say all the time, you can't legislate morality. Well, everything that's legislated is legislated out of the sense of a value that has value. You don't steal from somebody, right? Because you're robbing somebody of something that belongs to them. We got to be careful when we go into those conversations and those sound bites where we say things like that, because your values are the ones that would be legislated if you're against this one. If you're advocating for a certain thing, you are legislating value. You are legislating morality, your morality, right? And so I think that as we talk about, the two swords of working with the church and working with the state or with the government, we have to be respectful and we have to be mindful, but we have to understand that those have been two cohesive entities. But the work of the church is the work of the church. It's the pillar and the ground of the truth of the gospel. And if we don't maintain that, that's why I go into that mindset. The gospel was enough for those in the civil rights movement, enough for those in the early movements post-slavery. Why? Because the gospel sets forth how man ought to treat man.
Right.
And so when we talk about all of these other differentiations that have come out of that, we can't lose sight that the base prescription is still relevant. The base prescription is still the power behind any other prescription.
And I believe that when we look at our communities and when we look at our neighborhoods, I believe that we will agree that our churches become the pillow, because I remember being at a meeting, and I think you were there as well, when Ms. Talitha mentioned there are over 50 some churches right in the Greater Bond community. Over 50. And if it's that many churches, why is there so much crime? Why is there so much why is there so many dropouts? Why? So that means that we're missing something when it comes to having a voice that's going to sound the alarm. And the church is going to be the light, and the church is going to be the salt. And we cannot sit idly by and say we don't have no right to be talking about government, or we can't get involved in politics.
Yes.
We can't get involved in meetings. No, that is ludicrous.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Your presence must be at commission meetings. Your presence must be at hearings that are taking place that's impacting your communities.
Sir, and this is the kicker here, and this is why this is a very important show and very important ongoing conversation. Our community is going to be spending itself over $1 billion in infrastructure.
And where will we be at?
And that's going to be leveraged a couple of times over with private investment, special interest investment. The city is growing. The state of Florida, I believe the last count, 900 people a day are coming here.
Well, it might have slowed down because of Disney. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, because I was just reading an article this morning where they were to build on 1,100,000 acres, and that is kind of stopped. But let's go back to the point. That was a little humorous.
No, I think that, but the reason why they were building is because they know 900 people a day are coming to Florida. Disney ain't crazy. That's a business decision for them.
But here's the thing that I think is so important for those who are listening to the broadcast. With everything that is growing and the way things are moving and what we see happening in our communities, in the state of Florida, in our cities, it's so important that one, our entrepreneurs understand that there's a vital role for them. Two, that our faith community understands that there's a great role for them.
Right.
And then our minority contractors and business owners understand that you are going to be a part of what is happening within our city. But if you're not equipped, and there's no one advocating, and there's no activism going on to make sure that you're at the table, then we'll make noise, and it'll be nothing but sound bites.
Well, and we got some topics rolling out even as we're talking.
Yeah.
These are very nuanced conversations, but they're conversations other communities are having. And I fear that they're not conversations that we are having.
And why aren't we having these conversations?
We're not having them because they are very nuanced. They're very high level. And, fortunately and unfortunately to a degree, much of the cultural acumen in terms of our assessment of what our role is on the community level as a people isn't in alignment with what most folks understand their role is on the community level as a people. We have to believe that 35%, because we represent almost 35% of this demographic in Tallahassee, Leon County, and I'm talking about unapologetically Black and African American. Okay,
so I want to stick a pin right there because I think we might get some callers. If we represent 35% of the demographics, what happens if we all get out to vote? That's a whole nother conversation.
Well, I think what would be a worthwhile experience is getting an agenda that addresses our community and getting everybody out to vote. But guess what that would take? That would take coordination. That would take alignment. It would take people looking outside their own red wagon in interest to see the interests of others.
Other people.
And it would take us being very strategic about launching businesses, launching people, launching entities, so that what would happen if the $600 million the city was spending just in Southside, if 10% of that, I even said 35%,
10.
Right? If 10% of that went into the pockets of Black and minority contractors, let that settle in your spirit for a little bit.
I think that just that 10% alone would change the trajectory of people in our communities. It would change the mindset. It would employ so many. I mean, I was talking to a young man who's a business owner, formerly incarcerated, And his whole problem now is trying to plug into the millions of dollars that are going to be spent in our community.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the issue, getting bonded so that he can plug into. And 10% of $600 million, it would absolutely, I think it'll really wake us up as a community to know how valuable we are to each other,
Mm-hmm.
because now circulation of dollars are within our neighborhood.
That's right. That's right. Tithes are being paid to churches. Wages are being paid to families. Equity is being established based upon value and opportunity. I think, as we talk about this, and this is so biblical, right? The crux here is to encourage growth and engagement and discourage greed, right? Because the problem, I think, is not that there's enough resource out there for everybody to benefit. The problem is that people are greedy.
Yeah.
They don't want to share. They don't, we share information freely. We share, some come out, we're open book.
Not only that, but we're figuring out ways to help people to be empowered in what it is they're trying to do. And we're making the relationships that I've been able, the Lord has allowed me to be favored with.
Mm-hmm.
They're not for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They are for the community, those who are in need. I went the other day to a clemency board hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I'm standing there, and the clemency board members, I pretty much know all of them. I know the Attorney General, Ashley Moody. I know the CFO, Jimmy Patron. I know the Secretary of Agriculture. I know the governor. I know them all.
Mm.
And just standing there said so much.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are. We will ridicule.
Mm.
We will try to destroy individuals because of relationships that have the potential and the possibility to help you facilitate your next move. And we have to understand that as a community, and we have to understand that as a people. And once we understand that the relationship that Christy Henry have, or the relationships that Darius Dottie has, or the relationships that Talithia Edwards have, they are relationships that help build us and help empower us.
Yes.
Because when Talithia makes a call or Christique makes a call, it's not for Christique, it's to help empower someone who has a need.
That's right. That's
we don't get it.
Well, we better. Because at the end of the day, right now, people have a blueprint and a design, and I don't think anything of ensuring that someone gets what God has for them. I don't think nothing of it. I don't think anything of it, because you can't hoard it all yourself. What I got to work on is trusting people, because folks crazy, right? But you learn and you heal. But I think that at the end of the day, when you look at these economic pictures, you look at the over 22 million people that live in Florida. There is over 900 people a day moving to the state.
Wow.
Over 900 people moving to the state a day. You got an advisory just sent out by the NAACP telling African Americans don't move here or don't visit here or whatever. An advisory to folks to warn them about the conditions in Florida. And that's a gesture that they felt compelled to do. My question would be, how do we benefit from the opportunities in this place?
Well, I think it's amazing you're saying that, and wow, what a way to wrap up this Wednesday for the month of May, because there's so much that has happened within the last 30 some days of the month.
Yes, it has.
And like you said, how do you benefit? Okay. And the question becomes, okay, it's an announcement that was made by the NAACP saying, hey, if you're coming, don't come, blah, 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 whatever the case might be. But then how do you get to the table to leverage what you see that can have a possible outcome to really be beneficial?
Because there's 900 people moving to Florida. Ain't nobody moving from Florida, right? I'm not moving. I don't see the number of Black people that's saying I'm finna get up out of Florida. They staying here.
Yeah, they
Okay, they ain't going nowhere. I don't want to sound contradictory. I don't want to sound controversial. But let's get past the distractions, right?
Yeah, we have to.
Let's see through the distractions, and let's say this. And again, I understand there's value in the function of the advisory. But my question has always been, how do we benefit from the climate?
Yeah.
Because when the housing market, we were watching about the housing market boom and bust back in the 2007. Goldman Sachs bet against their own self and made money.
And here's the thing about it. That I think is so important.
They got sued, but still,
what does the suit? It is the lawsuit really didn't matter because of the fact that the income superseded whatever they was going to.
They saved themselves by betting against themselves.
But here is what has to happen. We have to become strategic.
Yes.
In our processes, we have to become thought-provoking in our ideals. Because it's only when we stop the emotional rush
and let people make us emotional about stuff that we shouldn't be emotional about.
Yeah, and that has been happening throughout. That has been happening in politics. That has been happening in city, county, government. And I think that as we move into this election cycle, we're going to have a whole lot of shows that are going to be very controversial. We're going to have some shows that are going to be very challenging, and it has nothing to do with what I believe or what you think about me, or nothing to do with what the conscious chick may say or do, but it's to really give you a sense of awareness so that you can really think through what you're talking.
Yeah.
Because what you're talking is out of a seat of emotional. And here's what's so devastating about all of this.
It's not funny. You just have to laugh to keep from crying.
You have to laugh. I mean, one moment we could be so gun-ho about killing and murdering that's taking place, and then after a while, it's back to the normal business of the day. It's Gun Violence Awareness Month. I mean, it's coming up. I mean, and what are we saying? Well, I mean, we've got to figure out how do we, I don't want to say how do we stick to what we believe, no matter how the fires of the flames are turned. But we got to figure out how do we change the narrative that we're sending out.
Again, going back to your point about it don't blame the messenger, right? You can't blame the messenger. I was talking with someone and they were talking about law enforcement. They were talking about, they could take that money instead of hiring more police officers. They could take the money and do this and do that. So I had a conversation. I said, well, have you ever heard of a city's bond rating? And they were like, well, what's that? And so I had the opportunity to just kind of talk about what makes up municipal credit and all of the things that underwriters are looking for in order to give credit or extend bonding to a municipality.
Absolutely.
And talking about how public safety is a key component for that.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about you got to hire more law enforcement, it ain't because we want to over police the Black community. It's because we have to have a certain standard of public safety system in our community to be able to go and bond for dollars to invest in our community. Because we didn't make $1 billion in sales tax revenue to give to Blueprint. What we said as a city is, hey, we're going to invest sales tax dollars over the next 20 years in infrastructure improvement. And what the city has done, because they have the credit and the systems that give them the credit to be able to go and get this money fronted to them to make these necessary investments, they have been able to do that because they have maintained systems. So whatever you say about Reese Gold, however you feel about city government, it is hella difficult to maintain an A rating during the times that we have just come out of. And that's their job. Their job is not just to be touchy-feely all over the place with everything everybody feel. Their job is to maintain the stability and fiduciary responsibility of the city government, of the county government. Absolutely. And if they're not doing that, fire them for that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing that you're saying that. And hey, it's wrap up Wednesday.
It's wrap up Wednesday, y'all.
Wednesday, and we're just
we're not trying to be controversial.
Hey, but I just got a message from someone who I thought it was very hilarious. They said to me, they said you need to have a fuss box moment. and certainly, I mean, when you look at it, and when you look at, like you just said, when you talk about our city administration and our city team that is working to ensure that our city maintains a certain rating and a certain grade. I mean, it's not just about one facet of a city. It's about an overall plan that has to come together and to ensure that we're doing everything that needs to be done. And when you find people who want to attack because of a lack of ignorance on why they are attacking, or want to attack because it didn't feel good to me or it didn't seem right to me, look at the overall work that is being done, and let's celebrate the overall work. We all are not going to always agree, but let us disagree to agree, and let's move forward to keep making the work that we do better for the people that we serve. It's so disheartening to see people who are serving in our communities in public positions who are just downright vindictive, who are just downright set in their ways. And no matter what, it makes me think they're operating like people on the street that you did me wrong yesterday, I won't forget it, and I'm coming after you no matter what. And it's sad when you see commissioners who don't attend, what I want to say, allegedly, who don't attend meetings, but then get in county commission meetings and just raise all kind of fuss. But if you'd have been at the briefings, you'd have been aware of what's going on. So we're gonna dive into this, and we're not going to be tipping through the tulips as we move forward. So at the end of the day, I got on the whole armor of God. I got on the helmet of salvation. I got on the shield. I got the buckler, and I got the sword and the Bible in one hand.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to inform. We're going to encourage, and no doubt, if your toes get stepped on, then you got to buy some cushion to put in them shoes, because we're going to be walking real heavy as we move forward. Because there are some issues that we can't just sit idly by and not address right here on the Greg James Community Show. Right. Listen, oh my God, time has just slipped away, and we haven't even touched on some of the things that we were supposed to talk on.
No, we didn't.
I mean, we got into the self-care.
We did. We got into that and the stuff. But, it's a lot. So in a real quick wrap up, Pastor, shout out to Rudy Ferguson, who has put his name in the hat to run for the city commission.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and I think that it's incumbent upon anyone who desires to run for office to do so. And I don't think that you should be judged or you should be given a box to operate in if you decide that you're going to run. So big shots out to him.
Big shots.
And we're going to be talking more about that. And
absolutely.
I mean, the bravery of this young man, and I think that he brings a lot to not only the office that he's running for, but I think he brings a lot to our community as a whole. He's been doing a lot. He's very familiar with what's going on in and around our city. He has his ear to the heart of people, and I think that's great. So big shouts out to him for making the big announcement to run for city commissioner.
That's right.
What else going on?
And in closing, because I know we only got a couple more minutes, we talked last month about two things, Pastor, that we were going to do. And the first was the fitness fast. We started out with self-care.
Yeah, we got to do it. The fitness fast has to happen. As a matter of fact, when I had the blood pressure scare, then I've had a young lady who I've been working with. As a matter of fact, I've had two young ladies that I'm working with. One who's with the Department of Health. She's getting ready to come on our Tuesday night empowerment and talk about, the different things that we must do to maintain good blood pressure and good health habits, eating habits. And then there's a young lady who's at our ministry who has put a gym in a C-section of our building,
Okay.
and that's Eureka. So she's going to be working with us to look at some of the fitness things that are needed. So we've got to do that. We got to plan it. We got to announce
Yes.
it, and we've got to get everybody ready for the Faith
Fitness
fast.
That's right.
That's right. And we're going to eat right. We're going to exercise. We're going to do affirmations. That's going to put us in the right posture that we need to be in. So it's going to be happening. What else did we talk about?
We talked about some of the children's programs. Shout out to TNL on their brand spanking new performing arts program and location.
That's right.
One time.
That's right. And that's amazing. That's Darius Dr. He's going to be doing something amazing this coming summer with our children, with the performing arts. It's been a long dream of his. I mean, to be able to take children up under his wings. And I mean, he's been doing it for so many years through TNL, but now to be able to have a formal program and to be able to have the Children's Service Council to believe in the proposal, fund the program, and now it's about to kick off. So that's amazing.
It is amazing. It's amazing.
And then there's so many more.
Pastor Judy Van Drell kicked off her summer camp, which is going to feature leadership development for youth. Most of these programs probably are already, done and tricked out. If they have any seats left, we'll try to post and let y'all know. But if you're still looking for your children to have something to do this summer, please get them in some of these programs.
Yeah, they're everywhere. As a matter of fact, the Capital, the Big Men Minority Chamber with Maurice, they are kicking off Camp Trippy, which is going to be happening. So I think what we need to do, hopefully, is to bring as many in here, and because we want to get our children engaged in these programs, and we want to get them involved so that they can go through the summer with an experience that can possibly be a mind shift as they move forward. So big shout out to all of the programs. Pastor Nikki, she has been working diligently with our youth. She's kicking off, I think, Sam Cart. I mean, maybe we just need to figure out who's in this youth space that's working with our children.
It would be really cool if we could do like a off broadcast town hall. And we could just bring all of them on and they can talk about what it is that they're doing and, when they're doing it, because you got a lot of stuff launching in the summer, but they'll have year-round opportunities, I'm sure. And this is all a goal to decrease youth, to provide youth activities, but also decrease instances of juvenile decision-making, right? I won't say gun violence because all our kids ain't doing it. Right, but it is an opportunity to deter some through supervised activity and enrichment. So we definitely want to support and to lift that up. There's just a lot happening this summer, and we really need to make sure that we're staying focused on the things that matter, and that's our job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our job is to read through the tape and to say, "Hey, no, look,
this is what's matter." Yeah, this is it.
This is it.
Yeah, don't get caught up in that. Because this is it.
This is it.
Yeah. A lot of times that can cause you to miss out on this.
You better say that. You better say it now.
I said that.
Yeah, you did.
Because I want you to know about this.
Yes, absolutely.
But certainly, what an amazing time today. Just conversation. I mean, it's just like we're sitting on the porch in the neighborhood, drinking lemonade, having a conversation. And there are moments when, our temperatures got up because there are these sensitive topics that come about where, people are not tuning in to what's going on. So therefore, they're speaking out of a sense of misinformation. Yeah.
We are in times, Pastor, where we can't afford misinformation.
We can't.
We cannot afford misinformation. So all translators, all communicators, we all need to be on the same page. We all need to be on one accord because there's message that people need to receive so they will have life and have it more abundantly.
Hey, listen, that's the way to end the show. You need to be all on the same page so that they can have life and have it more abundantly. Wow. There's nothing more than having the abundant life. Listen, once again, sir, I want to thank you, Christique, for being here. I want to thank you for even taking the invitation some many months ago, when I said, "Hey, listen, why don't you join me on the show? I think that you have so much that the community needs to hear about, and I think that you have a wealth of information that our community needs." So I want to thank you so much for the show that you have called The Conscious Chick, and it has been really an eye opener. And some of the guests have just been phenomenal. As a matter of fact, many of the guests that have walked into this studio will probably never had a chance to talk to the audience that we're dealing with, simply because that opportunity would never have arisen except through you and The Conscious Chick. And now they are more invested into the work that is being done because they have a chance to hear and see and sit. Ezekiel said, "Until you have sat where I sat, you'll never understand the pain, the problems, or the process that I'm having to deal." So thank you so much. Well, listen, those of you who have been tuned in, it's been an amazing show online. We thank God for the 10,000 plus listeners that are tuned in every Wednesday to the Greg James Community Show. To those of you who listen to us on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook, thank you so much. And to those who are listening by way of 95.3 FM, hallelujah, thank you.
Amen.
Listen, it's been an amazing month of May. As we move into the month of June, we want you to be safe. We want you to be prayerful, and we want you to stay tuned to the show that's making a difference. It's the Greg James Community Show. All right, Facebook, y'all, it's been an amazing show.
It's been a good conversation. Listen, y'all stay safe. Don't eat too many hot dogs. Make sure you buy that good watermelon, the one on the side of the street.
Man, that watermelon something. I done had some yellow watermelon.
Oh, yeah, I gotta go find one of them.
Yeah, I done had some yellow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, listen, it's been amazing. Listen, y'all take care of yourselves. Be blessed, and we're gonna see y'all the next time. Okay.